Well, isn't this just a load of egg on my face? Now, at the time of the dev stream being shown and the rework for Ajax, I penned this down as a lackluster reworking, expecting this to be falling flat with the community, and once again relegating Ajax to the bottom half of tier lists once more. And well, it quite hasn't worked out just like that. Now, one of the best changes that came with the patch was from Mobile Fortress, allowing his modified barriers to stick around him as he moves, along with providing further benefits as they stay active. Now, if you've ever wanted an Ajax build that runs Forbidden Sanctuary, which is the brand new dungeon we've got and the hardest content, in less than 5 minutes, well, then you're going to be in the right place. So in today's video, we'll be looking at the Rocketman Ajax build that I've made, which has been designed with tankiness and DPS in mind. We'll be looking at how to build him, explaining the full skill rotation for how it all comes together. We've got the modules, weaponry, Arche Tuning, trigger mods, and components all to come. So as always, if that sounds good to you, what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. So let's kick things off and talk about what's changed for Ajax inside of his rework first, and why Mobile Fortress is positioned to be his new best mod. Now I'm going to try my best to summarise this and make this bit as quick as possible, just because of the sheer amount of wall of text that we got sent. So MP cost of skills has been reduced by roughly 30% across the board. The damage of his skills has also been reduced by 30% just to be able to make up for it, though you can scale every ability's damage by a percentage of your defense, which at cap and working out to be roughly a 2.6x damage increase. Now his passive was amended across each stage to grant a 20% cooldown reduction as long as you're on at least stage 1, along with those figure amendments for fire rate and explosive attack. His skill 1 was changed from reflecting the received incoming damage to flat skill power values, so this should make it a little bit more consistent across the board. It now also applies a debuff called Void Leakage, which when enemies touch that shield, and then when you hit enemies with that while your magazine is empty, this will instantly reload from your reserves, and this turns Ajax into a makeshift Glay as long as this kind of debuff exists on at least one target out there in the field. Skill 2 just had the damage values reduced and the damage stacking added on, and Expulsion went the exact same route but now has the ability to taunt enemies, which is going to be perfect for those co-op lobbies. Lastly, his skill 4 now provides a defense boost to himself and allies when inside the cube, while also applying an attack reduction debuff to any enemies that enter inside. Now while all of this is pretty solid when we put this into practice, all of these changes start to shine as soon as you slot in that Mobile Fortress Red mod, which is going to be giving you the simple changes of allowing your barriers to follow you around as you move, but also changing your skill 1 to mini rotating barriers, making it much easier to be able to apply that Void Leakage debuff for your gun spam. And as how to best utilise this new kit, well, we want to be able to use our skill 2 for mobility and repositioning, but also to be able to proc our passive by 1 bar. Our skill 3 is also there just as a panic button when surrounded, but mostly is also there to increase the bar a little bit closer to that max energy. This leaves us with our skill 1 and 4 to proc and which of them to make enhanced. Skill 1 only increases the reflection damage when it's enhanced, but when skill 4 is enhanced itself, we gain some nice bonuses to our firearm crit rate, crit damage, and attack increases. So with this in mind, we'll either be using our skill 1 as our third action to get our full energy state, and then enhance our skill 4. One key note to mention is make sure to throw out another second or third skill afterwards so that you have a bar of void energy, as the damage, cooldown and fire rate increases are just too nice to be able to leave out. So with the boring talk out of the way, let's take a stab at the module screen. Now the main categories we want to cover here will be survivability, mostly in that defense department as that is what's going to scale our damage output, and then we'll also want duration to save us casting our skills so often, and then throw in a little range and we should be all set. So duration's a nice and easy one to get out of the way, with maximised duration and skill extension giving us the biggest boost, with a little more help coming from Battle of Stamina. Now the extra HP from this combined with the blue increased HP mod will give us and our barriers plenty of staying power, ensuring that we won't be found crawling on the ground. For cooldown, we'll only be grabbing Nimble Fingers and MP Conversion, giving us just enough to be able to hit our rotation without needing to go over on the cap, especially when we combine that with our passive. And then Skill Expansion is only range mod that we need for this build, but it is not a terrible stat to grab as a third on your Ancestor mod, should you get lucky enough to be able to grab one. More range helps you with those barriers reaching out to start the process, but it also helps with passing on that Void Leakage debuff which comes after kills, allowing the process to carry on smoothly when it comes to just the rest of the general mobbing. Now for our defense options of choice, we'll be using both increased defense and shield conversion defense for the biggest boost to our stat, helping us to achieve our desired damage cap found at 320,000 defense. As for our Ancestor mod, this is kind of important, as getting the right defense roll on here will either make hitting that defense damage cap simple or a little bit of a challenge. Essentially what we're looking for here is a roll around about the 130 to 140% mark, but if you can't reach that, we can actually make adjustments by actually taking out the Ancestor mod altogether and slotting in something like an Iron Will in here instead until you find the right mod, or by taking changes to our Arche Tuning a little bit later on inside this video. We should actually be able to still be able to hit that cap regardless of if you've got it on your Ancestor mod or not. Now for the best in-slot stats here though, finding a defense and duration up with a negative against something like shield or crit damage or rate would be absolutely ideal, but the other stats like HP and range are also nice to have as a fallback option, just to be able to tack on as a third, just to be able to give yourself a little bit more flexibility. Now for the trigger mod, the only mod that you should be using is Supply Fortress. This is perfectly designed for what this Ajax can do. While the damage is nice when hit, we're mainly looking for the recovery chance roll here, as the higher that it is, the more likely we're going to be refunding rounds, and that allows us to be able to do our Glacier shenanigans as our beefy boy. As for our reactor of choice, 3 of 4 Ajax skills are going to be tech with this setup, with the 4th being a non-damaging ability and thus getting no benefits from rocking more power into it. So with that in mind, a materialized mechanics reactor is going to be our go-to, helping us with our first 3 skills damage output. Now as for the rolls, we do have a few options here, as a cooldown is a bit optional. Duration up is going to be the best one to look for though, so make sure that you have that one locked in, but other combinations to kind of like tie in with that and to consider would be things like cooldown, non-attribute and tech ratios alongside that duration roll. As for the components, and I bet you've never seen a setup like this before, due to us needing defense both in base values and inside of multipliers, we'll be opting for a 2-piece into the Moving Fortress set, along with a 2-piece into the Annihilation set for more skill duration and stats. Now while the 4-piece of Moving Fortress is an option, the reduction in crit rate and damage paired with the damage reduction isn't providing enough benefit to run us over this kind of option that we are running here and the one that I'm suggesting. Now for the substats and cores, it's the typical combination they're known to run, with HP and defense on the cores, and your usual HP and MP rolls for the substats to keep you fully topped up. So while we have some damage coming from our rotating shields and our Supply Fortress mod, the main chunk of it all will actually still be coming from our weaponry. Now, and with Ajax really kind of leaning into explosive attack with his passive and his skill 4 buffs, there's never been a better time to dust off the old faithful restored Relic than right now. Now as we have ways to slightly boost crit rate and damage through Ajax's buffs, it allows us for us to go into more of a multi-crit package with the Relic, so we'll be grabbing all of the positives when it comes to multi-hit, but steering clear of the negatives like crit damage or rate of fire losses. So with that in mind, this is going to be the build. While most of this looks standard source, the thing we should talk about here are going to be the 2 mods for increasing our max high power rounds. Now while this does hurt our movement speed, which can be negated by using the vehicles kind of like quite freely and inside most of the level, what it provides is more of a backstock value for our Supply Fortress and our fellow to utilize, and in turn that is going to be providing us more rounds per proc, and that allows us to be able to maintain that unlimited ammo supply more easily. Now for the weapon cores, we'll be running the typical generic build for the Relic, which is maxing out on fire rate and popping more into fire attack, which is perfect for the intrinsic fire element on the gun and for more DPS. With the 3 fire rate cores and Ajax's passives, we can hit the fire rate cap off 600 RPM, amounting to some nutty damage when we hold that trigger down. For the sub-rolls, leaning into multi-hit damage and chance over crits seems to go a little bit more bang for our buck here, and that is going to be followed by an increase to more fire attack and also our explosive attack for that base value. For the Arche Tuning, we want to be hitting as hard as possible through our Relic spam, so bonuses to defense strips and explosive attack are on the menu for us here. Grabbing some skill power here isn't going to be hurting the build over going left, as we can't land weak point shots reliably with the Relic, and the skill power will help the barriers deal more damage as they start making contact for easier mobbing. The duration boost above that will also be nice to have, allowing those barriers to hang around a little bit longer. From here we can branch out left and right, with right allowing us to hit the mutant cell slot for defense neutralization, which is going to be perfect for our gun damage to deal a little bit more DPS, and left granting us increases to our attack, crit rate, crit damage, and most importantly the 3 nodes around the max rounds modifier. And using these max mods we had earlier on the Relic and multiplying them so that we can see bigger boosts, this is going to be affecting how much ammo we'll receive every single time we get a restock. Now while the board will change for Reaper farming, I'll be doing another video to cover that, as I'm still in the process of sorting out my second Relic, so I can then take on that challenge and with it in a decent time. For the inversion, there isn't much here that massively benefits the build ever since Season 3 took away access to our focus rounds, but if you want the suggestions that I personally rock, you can copy these. So Adrenaline Surge is going to be offsetting that movement penalty on the Relic build. Selective Neuro can be swapped out for Selective Cellular if you prefer healing over the MP heal. Both do a solid job, but feel free to be able to go for your personal preference. And then lastly, and possibly the best choice in the whole board, we have Shield Particle Recon, which is going to be allowing us to top up our shield every 35 seconds, as well as providing more defense stats. And then lastly, just to quickly kind of recap what kind of fellow you do want to be taking, there's only one real choice, and that is going to be, because we're firearm dependent, we're going to be grabbing the Hunting Dog, which is going to be giving us a bunch of rounds every 40 seconds. This helps to alleviate the dependency on your supply fortress a little, and it basically tries to ensure that you have rounds to spare at all times. And with all that out of the way, that wraps it up for my Rocket Man Ajax build. When I saw the devs showing off his changes on stream, I won't lie, my heart was filled a little bit of dread, as I had been working on a Reflect build for a number of weeks, and it looked to be potentially made worse. But fortunately though, I'm happy to eat my own words on that stance, and right now, there's a chance Ajax might be a better form of Glay, at least in a solo content perspective, when he can restock his ammo supplies reliably. And so this is a section I want to hear from you. What are your current thoughts on Ajax's rework? How do you feel about the new dungeon difficulty? And then lastly, what are your current thoughts on Season 3 so far? Let me know all that and more down below. Massive thank you for making your way to the end of the video. As I always say, keep yourselves safe, keep yourselves well. I'll see you all on our next video.